Hello. This is my Unit 3 Counter-Argument and Rebuttal discussion. My thesis position for this paper are that the creative arts are one of the principal foundations of human knowledge and should be fully funded within the United States schooling system. If we go over to our little thing, I have to have a counter-argument and a rebuttal. My main counter-argument for this would be that some believe that the government should not fund the arts. Their reasoning is that the private sector of funding in particular already contributes a vast majority of it. If you look at how the United States funds the arts for the public sector, this includes everything from museums to educational programs to schooling. Federal government makes up about 1.2% of the overall funding for the entire United States, and then subsequently states, the individual state makes up about another 1.5% of that. For a little under 3% of funding for the arts comes from the United States government. So why should the United States government and state government continue to put in that very minuscule amount of money? If you already have private individuals who are willing to pay millions of dollars to fund your educational programs and to fund your museums, why should smaller citizens such as myself or you have to pay taxes to fund those programs? If you look at documents, if you look at articles such as Modern Medici's by Andrew Klein for the Weekly Standard, he'll go in and show you that himself being a private citizen already pays large amounts of money towards the arts and contributing towards the arts anytime they visit a city or go anywhere as a family. And yes, this does contribute heavily to the arts. I mean, think about the amount of arts that you consume from YouTube content creators to musicians to your local radio stations to your local restaurateurs, painters, and designers. Most funding does come from private citizens. However, even though the government does only contribute this 1.2% of all funding to the arts, when you start to look at districts that are more rural, such as places outside of Tallahassee in Florida, you have this 1.2% might actually make up 80 to 90% of the funding for those individuals. And so that 1.2% that's coming from the federal government tends to fill in spots where you don't have private citizens who are able to pay millions of dollars for your arts educational programs. If you look at articles by Eve Samples from the Tallahassee Democrat, this 1.2%, for instance, for most arts education programs and publicly funded museums, it does make up almost 90% of the funding for their local region when it comes to these programs. And subsequently, by defunding of that 1.2%, you're defunding the areas that do not have the ability to have a private citizen fill in that gap. So for individuals to see that 1.2% and think that's $1 on the 100, well, that's that kid out of 100 who doesn't have that dollar. And the ethics behind who should be able to do what, and especially when you're looking at things like public schooling and the way the United States public schooling system works, it would be completely unethical, because then you'd have kids literally who could be a mile apart who know each other, and one has arts programs, band, arts class, graphic arts in their school, and the other one does not. And that has social implications, that has learning implications, and it has many other implications. And if anyone has any input, I would greatly like to hear it. Responses in the comments below.